never got any older, only got a little bit colder. No, the noises that keep me up at night, they're why I don't turn off the got any older, only got a little bit colder. No, the noises.
Today I'm talking to Izzy Spring, singer and rising solo star. She has just released her latest single, Monsters in the Closet. And man, like I say, I am excited to talk to you. This is so great. Thanks.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk to you.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, Monsters in the Closet. Now, you've released a couple of singles over the past year, I want to say, somewhere around there. Yeah.
I don't think it's been that long. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So a very short time. And, you had another band project, Good Mistakes.
I did. Oh, wow. You found that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Which is quite a bit different than what you're doing as a solo star. Are you still doing Good Mistakes music or another band project?
I'm not doing Good Mistakes so much anymore. A lot of the members of that band have moved on to their own different projects. That being said, we're all still friends, and I still do collaborate with the guitarist from Good Mistakes, because he's just one of my favorite musicians to work with in general.
Cool.
And when I play live, I do try and take every opportunity I can to at least sneak one Good Mistakes song in there, because I do really love my old music as well.
Oh, that's good. So many people, that I talk to are, they kind of look back and go, "Oh my God, I can't believe I did that," But yeah, I mean, it's great stuff. And it's another side of you, which is always nice to see. I like to see a musician that branches out and does different things. And, it's really cool to see that side of you.
Well, thank you. I think, definitely like the alt rock side of me still kind of lives in my music, although I think a lot of the songs I've been releasing lately don't fully showcase that, but at the very least, I don't know if I could ever completely disconnect with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. It's part of who you are, definitely. How would you describe your current music? I was gonna say singer and rising pop star, but that a certain audience looks at that in a certain negative light, I think. There's, when you say pop star, things like auto tune come up, and, fly by night kind of here today, gone tomorrow aspects of that. You are not that. I don't really hear that when I listen to your music. It's well done, and you obviously have a lot of talent. So how would you describe your music?
I'm not afraid of most monikers, for as far as the genre that people like to kind of shift me into, but I definitely don't think I embody any particular one. I would say I had a lot of people tell me Nobody Knows sounded like a country song, which was pretty interesting to get that feedback. Mostly because the amount of country I listen to, I do confess, is fairly limited. Bedroom pop is probably one that's thrown around. Just because I think it is the kind of stuff that people might listen to while lying in their bedroom and just thinking. And there's a lot of pop kind of tendencies. I'm not afraid of more modern day sounding production. I think the producer that I'm working with does a really good job of infusing a lot of that into my music. He's also a film composer, which kind of definitely puts a really cinematic lens on a lot of my music. And I've had a lot of my friends tell me listening to my music feels like they're listening to a soundtrack, which I think is really cool. Yeah. But yeah, I can't really pick one particular genre. And I would always call myself an alt rock singer because that's what I would do before, doing the solo project. I never really thought of myself as any different, just because I went into being a solo female artist or whatever. But I will say probably the sound's pretty different. I don't quite sound as Hayley Williams-esque as I probably did before.
Right. Right. Exactly. I would say that as well. Yeah, it's a little I don't want to say darker, but it's more serious. There is a lot of little darker themes, maybe. You have a very serious side, and that is really that I love to hear that. Do you write your own songs? Do you write all your own songs?
I do. I did collaborate a lot with Good Mistakes with the guitarist on music. Sometimes he would come in and be like, "You have 5 minutes. Write a song to this." And like play something. I'd be like, "Oh crap!" Running around just trying to write something as quickly as possible. I think like part of the reason that doing the solo project was so important to me was because like having a voice in like expressing really clearly a lot of things that had been weighing on my mind. That wasn't the kind of energy that I had with my band. I think like with my band, it was stuff that like maybe I was sad, but like you could dance to it at a club. You can't really dance to Monsters,
Right.
or maybe you can, but it would be a lot more like modern and interpretive or something. I don't know.
Right.
But it's not really like a jump up and down kind of song. And I wanted to write music where I could express like some really sad, traumatic things, and also connect with people on those sad, traumatic things because I don't think I'm the only one who experiences them.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, definitely not. Would you consider having outside writers write some things and have you sing over 'em?
Sure. I mean, I'm never not open to collaborating with people. I think that like there have been times where I've heard really good songs and I've been like, that would be really fun to sing. Like that sounds like a really good time. I don't think it's the same thing as like singing your own music because there's a degree of expression that I think only the artist can really offer. That being said, that's kind of a very particular opinion that might not be as popular in the industry. But like for example, like I brought up Julia Michaels to people in the realms of people who like write their own music or like really powerful songwriters. And I do think like her voice really suits her music, but she ghost writes for like 90% of the pop industry. And so many people for a long period of time just kept telling her like, you have the talent, you have the voice. Why aren't you just singing your own songs? And she didn't like performing. I think there's always the dichotomy, right? Like
Yeah.
performing tends to bring a different kind of energy for people than songwriting does, and I enjoy both, so I'll do both. But I won't limit myself to only doing both. I can do just one, or I've ghostwritten songs for other people before, although I don't know if those are out, so I can't
Okay.
say anything about that yet. I don't think.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that's popular in the pop genre. There are not a lot of pop stars. I shouldn't say not a lot, but there's a great many of them that don't write their own music, which is fine. But you're the package. You do all that. So I mean, and there is a special thing there. You are exuding the feel of the song because it's personal for you, and I think that comes through in the voice, definitely. um you do you have formal vocal training?
That's a interestingly loaded question that I've never been asked before in an interview. I, as a young child, I did like musical theater, which might have been like the closest. But apparently, I just got very pitchy from a lot of the instructors that taught me because notorious in musical theater is a little notorious for people not to quite hit pitches. My mom was pretty much my vocal instructor growing up, as well as my dad. They're both amazing and like powerhouse singers who both had formal vocal training, so they kind of passed down those techniques to me. But it wasn't like we had a lesson every Wednesday and Tuesday. It was more like I would sing something and they'd come in and go like, "Well, that sounded really bad. Just hit it." And then they'd hit the note that I was like struggling to hit, and I'd sit there and be like, "God." Oh! And maybe that like frustration of like trying to attain the level of greatness my parents already embodied was what pushed me a little bit in trying to learn.
Very cool. And it's really great to have people with that kind of training right close to you. Now, I mean, I know that your mom, kind of a local celebrity where you are, you know, but I know she played a recital at the Lincoln Center when she was in Juilliard pre-college.
You
Uh,
do your research, dang.
Yeah, yeah. No, I wanted to ask you that too. Does that kind of creep you out a little? I can imagine. No, okay. Uh,
I adore it. It's fun because it gives us more of a basis to jump off of to chat about. I think
yeah.
sometimes I've gone into interviews where people are like, I, to be honest, didn't listen to your song. And I'm like, what are we even going to talk about today?
That's crazy. Yeah. No, oh, I just I always do the homework, and I want to know who I'm talking to, and I want to know all the ins and outs. And my daughter's 20 years old, and she thinks, Dad, that's a little creepy. I know a lot about your mother and your father, and the way you were brought up a bit, and I think that's important. I think that's important to know for your music, definitely. Um, but your mother went to Juilliard, so that's about as formal as you can get. um, and your dad's a big like '80s rock fan. I saw your dad in an Iron Maiden T-shirt. I was like, wow, that's cool. What a cool dad.
He was actually like both of them in their own right were like did a lot of music. So my dad for a while was like a famous guitarist in the 90s for a punk rock band called the Nuns. I don't know if you know them.
I've heard them. Yeah.
But he like the weird thing about talking with my parents about this kind of stuff is they don't talk about it to me. So like I'll find out really randomly in like conversations like my mom will bring up, oh, like remember that one time you were voted like People's Magazine's guitarist of the year, and my dad will be like, it was the decade, but who's really counting? I don't know. And I'll be like, what? Like, where's this magazine? My dad's like, I don't know. I didn't save a copy. And I'm like, if I was voted People's Magazine's guitarist of the decade, I would have that framed on my wall. You're crazy. And then like my mom, I find out that she dated like super famous rock stars back in the day from other people. But if I bring it up to her, she's like, why are you bringing up my exes? It's weird. I'm happily married with children. It's kind of weird that you're bringing it up. And I'm like, well, you dated Chris Isaac. That's still kind of cool. Like Wicked Game. Like, come on, that's cool. Did he write it about you? Like, I want to know.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of how I do the research. It's cool to know those things. You get to know the person before you even see them, and that really it does. It helps with the conversation, I think, and yeah, and I come to find out that you're a harpist, a trapeze performer.
I wouldn't call myself a trapeze performer because my aerial skills are bad. I've definitely I do trapeze, but poorly. I describe myself as a very like crappy aerialist.
Any aerialist is pretty cool.
Like I can do certain things that like a lot of aerialists could do with like grace, but I'll do it while going like ow 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 ow, that really hurts. And yeah, that's the way I'd describe it.
Pretty cool. And a visual effects designer.
I do 3D visual effects. Currently, I'm more on the production end, but my primary training with that is like rigging and animation. But yeah.
Cool. What about like video for your music? Do you get involved with that?
That I did like technically direct one of the videos that is up there for Betting on Myself. That one did not turn out great though. I don't know if I'd be proud to say like, yeah, I done that. My name's all over it, which is a little cringy. But Yeah, there's like definitely some problems with the lighting. We shot it in my garage for about like $100. We grabbed a bunch of crap from Target and just built the whole set. And I wanted to build something that I could easily destroy and that we could do some like time lapse stuff and like just kind of go backwards in time when destroying things, like repairing pieces of your life. There was a plot line to it. A lot of that plot line got scrapped because we just had a lot of fun filming and being goofy, and we found some animal masks, and it was just a shit show at some point. So perhaps I'm not the greatest director in the world, but I will also argue that we did it in half a day with $100. So maybe okay.
Absolutely.
Maybe okay.
Absolutely. And the song, I mean, it's great for sure. So I mean, that's what it's really about. Come on. Um, what are your biggest fears? Yeah, now you're just starting out. You're young. There's a lot of bad things out there, a lot of great things out there. It's somewhat hard to navigate sometimes. Do you have any fear as you walk out there?
I don't have fears with the music industry. I have frustrations with the music industry for sure. I mean, if we're talking general fears, then probably like COVID or like family members dying and traumatic things like that. But if we're talking fears kind of centered around my career, I think most of the time, like I approach everything fearlessly because you kind of have to just get anywhere. You have to one, be fully confident that what you're doing is good. Even if it's not, if you don't believe it, nobody else will. So you have to come out like saying like, I am as great as I say I am in any room that you enter. So I'm not really afraid of people calling me out on that. I think like at this point I've worked hard enough that I'll back it up wherever I go. But yeah, maybe just frustrations with like oversaturation in the market. A lot of musicians I think sometimes can be like difficult to collaborate with as well. Not the musicians I collaborate with, but making connections with other artists where like you might approach someone and say like, hey, like really like your music, let's do something. And people tend to be more flippant until they like hear you out a little bit and like hear what you sound like, which is natural to an extent, but I think it's the sort of like they give me a chance frustrations where like I can prove it if you will give me that chance. Yeah, I don't know about fears. If I don't make it, I won't lose sleep over it as long as I tried 3,000% to put my all into my music. So that's not really a fear.
Mhm.
If my family doesn't like my music, it wouldn't be a first. If my friends don't like my music, it wouldn't be a first. I've had instances with the producer that I work with where like Monsters, for example, he listened to one of the lines in the bridge and he went, I love this whole song. I hate that line. I hate that line so much. I don't think it flows at all. And I sat there and I listened to it and I went, yeah, you're kind of right. And I like changed it on the spot. And like, I'm not afraid of bad critique.
Okay.
Maybe a fear would be if everything does go really well. Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm sure you have because it's pretty big, but if you haven't, there's an Amy Winehouse documentary where
Mhm.
there's an interview with her where they asked like, what will you do if you like make it? And she goes, oh, I never will. And thank God I never will because I couldn't handle it. And
Wow.
right after she did make it big, she just unraveled.
Yeah.
And that's a terrifying notion as a musician. I don't know how well I would handle being a bigger name. So perhaps that's a fear. This
Yeah.
might have been a very roundabout way of answering that question.
And it's a great way of answering that question because you just realized that yourself. I think, you didn't say to yourself, months ago that, boy, if I make it, it's going to be scary. Uh, you know, so little self discovery maybe. But yeah, it's I think of Kurt Cobain and things like that, and would he be alive if he was just singing in a bar? No, maybe. So yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. Are you ever afraid that you won't be taken seriously, especially, being part of a pop genre? Like I say, a lot of it is, a lot of people are rolling their eyes at the Ariana Grandes, who are extremely talented. But you have that group, many people that are kind of roll their eyes at that kind of thing. Is that something that you're afraid you won't be taken seriously for your talent?
Mm. I think that's a really, really good question. And it's also just one that it's so thoughtful. And I'm glad you asked it. Um, like especially women in the industry tend and sometimes I don't know like always notice it's happening. I didn't notice it was happening to me for years and years and years, but a lot of the times in rooms full of people when discussing my own career, I was often the last person they asked for input. There would be like, we're going to release this, we're going to release this, we don't like this, we have to do this. And like I'd kind of be like, excuse me, in the background trying to get a word in about like my own sound. And I've been in rooms with producers where I've said like, I don't like that, I think we should change that, and they've been like, well, I've been around longer, and I've had to kind of sit there and eat my own frustrations. I think at this point, like that is more of a frustration than a fear too, because I've experienced it already. Um, and yeah, I think I'm better at standing up for myself now, and I'm better at vocalizing like I don't want that. I'm going to take my career by the balls, and I'm just going to make the music that I like. If people don't like me, if people don't like my music, if they don't like the messages that I stand for, I'm okay with being on the receiving end of a little bit of hatred. I haven't been yet, so maybe I shouldn't say that. And I hope I don't lose that like firepower under my skin. But I'm pretty vocal about wanting to support female artists specifically who've experienced things like this. So I don't think that'll change. We'll
Good for you.
see how well this interview withstands the test of time. But I think I
Yeah,
just got a lot of firecracker energy right now.
hell yeah, yeah. Good for you. Good for you. And I mean, I think women need somebody like yourself, and they need advocates for the journey. There's, they're just, I mean, there's so many great, talented women out there, and I think we're breaking through that barrier a little bit, which is really nice. I see more and more coming through and being successful. So it's because of artists like yourself. So I
Well, it's also because of interviews yourself. People who are like exposing female artists and asking these kinds of harder, more like dig deep kinds of questions about this. My thought process about like being, like a woman in an industry that is predominantly male dominated, is that like when men kind of like reach out their hands and uplift women, that's actually one of the most powerful things that can possibly happen. And it is unfortunately a little bit rare, so it's wonderful to speak with people about this kind of stuff.
good, good.
I'm going like hyper feminist mode. It's breaking through, but
And it's one of my favorite things, and like the shirt, Pretty Reckless. There's so many bands out there now that are, just powerful women. These powerful women that are just coming across with these amazing talents, uh, and it's getting more and more popular, and it's getting acceptable, which is really really cool to see. That's awesome. It really is. Uh, I want to ask you about Home for the Holidays. Um, because like I said, you got a little bit of that dark side. Monsters in the Closet's a little bit on the dark side. Home for the Holidays, beautiful song, absolutely beautiful Christmas song. With a little bit of a dark kind of theme. Which is really, that dichotomy is really, really beautiful. I love that. And you do it so well, and it's very hard to do that. Um, I want to ask you about that song and how your holidays are and what inspired that song. And then I want to ask you what mom and dad thought of it, because I know you're so close with your mom and dad. I know that. So yeah, tell me about Home for the Holidays.
Um, I think one of the things that came up with in discussions with my label, and there's always the stereotype of like, you know, the label breathing down the artist's neck, the artist kind of like, it's very true. I'm not gonna lie. My label and I definitely have a little bit of a love-hate relationship. And one of the things that they brought up was like kind of to stay relevant during the holidays. For any musicians out there, this could be a little educational for you too. They don't like releasing new music for like budding artists during the holiday season because what tends to be playing on radio at the time and tends to be pushed is always holiday singles and holiday music. So around that time, they're supposed to release holiday songs. I didn't really know that, and then we kind of reached a certain time, and he was like, "You have to write a holiday song for the release." And I personally am not the biggest fan of the holidays. I have a complex relationship with it, if you will. I love my immediate family like beyond belief, and they're my rocks consistently day in and day out. I think some of my extended family can be particularly toxic, and being surrounded by that environment is something I only do once a year for Christmas. So I was thinking about like how I felt about the holidays, and I was trying to write something upbeat, and he was like, upbeat, fresh, peppy, think like happy. And normally like I can try bullshit something, I guess, but I was sitting there and I was like, and like COVID was happening or is happening, but it was at the time as well. And it was, you know, like I was laying on the floor and I muttered to myself, like, what am I supposed to write? Like, it doesn't feel like Christmas when everything's on fire. And I was like, that's a good line. That's a good line. And then I wrote the chorus first, which is it doesn't feel like Christmas when everything's on fire and everyone's a liar.
That is so gorgeous. That
Oh.
just what you did there is absolutely gorgeous. But the words are not so gorgeous. You know, they're you know what I mean? They're very dark. And I love that. I absolutely love the way that comes out of your mouth, and what you're saying is just completely different. And it's so wonderfully done.
Thank you.
It is great. I absolutely love it. When I first heard it, I was like, wow, this is a pretty song. And then I thought, well, it's not pretty in some ways. And I just love that, because I still don't know if I would call it pretty. You know, it's just so unique. It really is. I don't think I've ever heard a Christmas song that is somewhat negative. And I like that. I like that.
I think there can be beauty to the madness sometimes. Like, this was something that I noticed that my band would do a lot actually, was we would write like songs that like felt really dancey. And I was always going through crap because that's the stereotype of singers, right? We're always like filled with the drama. And I was always writing about my feelings, and the songs would still be dancey, but the lyrics, we had a song that was like, I don't know if we ever recorded this one, but it had the opening lyrics like, and it had this kick, and it was super dancey. And the vocals were like, feeling lazy, kind of down. I'm feeling like it was, I'm feeling like a clown. I've been running around. And it was, the whole idea was that like I was depressed. That was just the whole first lyrics was just, I'm depressed basically. But every time people heard it, sometimes when you're like listening to shows, like people don't super listen to the lyrics. So they were just like, this is a bop.
Yeah, I'm depressed.
Like dancing. And one of my bandmates actually pointed out to me, like, it's so funny. It's a very Hayley Williams thing to do. Because a lot of like Paramore's newer music, I don't know if you've gotten a chance to listen to it, but I highly recommend it. They have a song called Hard Times off of like an album from like maybe 2017.
Yeah.
The lyrics, it's super dancey. Mm-hmm. But the lyrics are like, all that I want is to wake up fine, tell me that I'm all right. And it's like super depressing, that I'm not going to die. That's what the fourth line is. But yeah, I think there's something fun about like having two different messages because no matter what you're feeling, you can relate to it. If you're in the mood to listen to something like chill bedroom pop and you're like laying in your bed and you're maybe not like a big Christmas person, you might be like, yeah, this is a vibe. Or if you're like one of my friends who had to disown his father during the holidays because of the fact that his dad hated him for being gay, like I think that like Home for the Holidays might resonate a lot more in a different way.
Right.
You might
Right.
feel a little more emotional listening to it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Um, and I don't want to forget the second part of that. Mom and dad. What did mom and dad think when they heard it?
My parents loved it. I think my mom, or both of my parents kind of experienced similar connections with the holidays. And my entire immediate family kind of commiserates on it. Where like my mom definitely really missed her mom during the holidays. And I had a line about like, though I really miss my grandma, maybe staying
Right.
inside is cool if I could hide. And she was like, yeah, I really related to like the lines about, like you still miss your family. And especially my grandma's like the sweetest little lady in the world. She's like the most adorable old Chinese grandma you can think of.
Right.
That's my nai. She's so cute. Um, and I missed her terribly during the holidays, but it kind of there was a portion of me that was like, it doesn't really feel like Christmas anyways. Christmas kind of sucks normally. I've never really had good experiences with it. Um, like I've liked Hanukkah before, which is really funny. Um, but yeah, they thought it was awesome, and they were like, "Stick it to the man."
There you go.
Cheering me on. So
That's cool. That's cool. Now, your dad's kind of in my demographic, I would say. Um, is what aspect of you and your music is going to relate or appeal to somebody in that demographic? And is that important to you? Are you, there's some artists like, you take your heavier, your Slayer, Metallicas, they're not really interested if, 12-year-old girls listening to pop like their stuff. They're probably not. And I totally get that. And I would get it in the reverse. But is it important to you that an older generation, somebody who just appreciates music in general, like myself or your dad, in that kind of demographic, how do you think you appeal to them, and do you care to appeal to them?
Um, I think there's something that cross generation and cross across all platforms virtually. Like one thing that people I think appreciate and can pick up on is authenticity. I think like for example, Billie Eilish is actually like an artist who has done a really great job of my parents love her. Everybody I knows kind of loves Billie Eilish because she's very authentic. And it's not just in her music, but it's in the way that she kind of messages herself in interviews. Like as a because she was a little teenager when she blew up.
Yeah.
She wouldn't wear like super form fitting clothing, and when asked in interviews because people just had so much interest in her body, even though she's like 16 years old.
Yep.
And she was asked why. She was like, I don't want you sexualizing me. I'm 16. And to me, like, it's the kind of like powerful authenticity and connection with her fans. Like, she has goofy interactions that tend to go viral. Where she'll be like, come here, you little dummy. Like, just be very, like warm and affectionate in a way that's like authentic and isn't like, let me appeal to you, let me
Right.
appeal to this fantasy of what you believe I should be. What I hope is maybe not everybody from every generation is going to love me. I know that I don't necessarily even appeal to my own generation sometimes because I can be pretty dark, and I'm aware. But at the very least, if anybody gets to know me, I hope that they can pick up on my authenticity and decide kind of more like on a friendship level, like as a person, as a musician, if they like me, regardless of what generation I'm in and what generation I should be appealing to.
right. And that's perfectly said. And I, you know, coming from my generation, for me, and I listen to everything. Um, for me, I like what you're doing because it is genuine. It feels real. It doesn't feel like it was made in the studio. There's no auto tune. Um, you know, there's not those modern things that are, you know, and I point this out to my daughter because she likes some of it. She listens to everything too, but she likes some of this stuff that's just got going on in the background, and there's, you know, little electronic beats going on in the background, and there's 45, 50 different tracks just in background noise. And I'm saying, you know, I can't sift through all that to get to the voice, to get to the artist. And I think that's a problem for me personally. I want to hear the voice. I want to hear that artist. And I don't want a lot of fluff to take my mind off of it. And I think that's kind of why that some of that stuff is there. You don't do that. You know, it's very like Billie Eilish does not do that. She's that voice is up front. It's right there. Your production is very much like that. It's very upfront. Adele, another one. Just an amazing tone and power that's right there. You know, there's nothing distracting all over the background. In your production, do you call for that? Do you ask for that? Uh, is that a collaboration with your producer?
Definitely. I've definitely like asked for my voice to be brought forward. I think for the most part though, like uh the producer that I've been working with is just really good at like identifying that himself and like where like if I'm getting drowned out, he would notice. I will say what's really interesting to think about nowadays is the way that productions kind of become its own instrument within itself.
Yeah.
Like producers are making a name for themselves just as producers, and like Billie Eilish actually is probably a great example because her brother, which is Phineas, produces all of her stuff, and the way that they approach production is so creative where like I could never think like I don't know if I could think of it as just like doing like electronic beats. Like they'll sample things like that one of the famous ones is that she went to the dentist for Bad Guy and there's a sound of a like
Right.
drilling tool and he was like, "Oh, you should record that. That sounds horrible." So she brought home a oh no, she recorded it and was like, "Listen to this, it sounds horrible." And he listened to it and was like, "We're gonna use that." And I think that's just so creative. And I think that there's like a degree of like modern production. There's like two sides of it. There's people who like think that like you can just overproduce and bubblegum pop everything into oblivion and people won't notice. But I think that my generation actually has more discerning ears than people think. I think that artists like Billie Eilish are using production as its own instrument and its own tool. Or Jacob Collier's another great one. But if anybody, I wanted to listen, that guy is a musical genius. And he's one of those people that does have like he'll like create like a 400 track song, bounce that, create another 400 tracks, bounce that, create another 400 and bounce it. But he plays all of the instruments for it. Like he can play bass, drums, guitar. Like has these crazy trippy music videos and his jazz theory knowledge is insane. Like there's videos of him in like on there's a whole thing where like if you're a musician and you're playing with another musician, you can't do it over Zoom because you'll experience lag. And there was a whole thing where he was on like Instagram Live with someone and he was singing with them and it was like in time and people were like, "How are you doing that?" He was like, "It's a little hard. I just have to do a few things in my head and then it works." And I'm like,
Wow.
I hate that guy. He's talented and I need a little bit of it. Like, let me smack it out of you and take some of it. But I think it's like those musicians of my generation that I always find it unfortunate that like there is a lot of bubblegum pop that kind of drowns out a lot of the artistry that's going in on other ends. There are artists who capitalize off of it. Like T-Pain is one of the most beautiful singers. Like if you actually hear him live, But he auto-tunes himself to all hell because he knows that's what's gonna sell. And there's a certain sound that he gets when he does auto-tune that's
Yeah.
different from other people, but he's aware that like that's what's gonna make money.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's all in.
Basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's all in what you want to make of a career, and if it's about making stuff that people like to hear and making money, but you're not really doing what you are really good at, then that's it's your choice for sure. Yeah, I like the legitimate voice. I love to hear that. It's really it's powerful, and I love hearing people that play their own instruments, write their own songs. Uh, I really have an admiration, appreciation for that, for sure. And I think a lot of my generation, the older generation, the more classic rock generation kind of thing, that so many of us have come up with, appreciate the instruments, because there's so much electronics in today's music and tracks and in the live setting too, that it takes away from a lot of that. You seem very authentic. You're not and that I love that. I love that. What can we find you listening to in your at home and in your car? You have a wide range, don't you?
Definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
between my mom being like, a classically trained musician and then, also like being a classic rock radio DJ. Before that, she was a classical DJ. And then before that, she was like a rock DJ. But there was a period of time where we used to go to the Hollywood Bowl growing up and like watch like the LA Phil and she'd get free tickets. And that was just like a thing we do on a Saturday.
Nice.
So I still have a love for like classical. I still have like the love for classic rock because that's what I grew up on. I think a lot of what I've been listening to lately is funk though. Specifically like neo funk and like some new age artists just really getting back down into the roots of like how to groove. Like really like like slap bass, like
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite forms of music. It really is. I love funk so much. I just so many forms of funk. Oh yeah,
neo soul and neo funk, I think lately because it takes all of the elements of like like what you're talking about, where like real instruments, kind of like really approaching it from this like basis of having a great knowledge of music theory, a great knowledge of the artistry of like the roots of music, and then taking it into like modern day production and just really making it like slap where you can like hear it in
yeah,
your car, in a way where it's just mind boggling and super fun.
right.
And I
That,
love dancing too. So like, it's just
uh,
what I listen to probably the most. And then there's some really fun tracks that are like coming out lately, and I'm a product of my generation, so I do like TikTok and I do listen to some of the songs that come from TikTok, and I'm like, well, that's pretty good. It's pretty good.
yeah,
Um,
sure. And it's great to have that rounded appreciation for music, because it's I mean, I can think of so many songs, so many different kinds of songs, and just sounds and voices that have changed my life. Really, I mean, just really had a great impact on the way I think and the way I live my life, which is it's a powerful thing. Um, do you have a dream collaboration?
oh, I have so many.
I knew you. I had a feeling you would.
I mean, there's some that I know will never happen.
Oh,
And
don't say
I've
that.
accepted that. That's okay. I don't think the Wilson sisters would ever want to collaborate with me. Um,
Wow, I
I
wouldn't say that.
I would cry. I would like I worship them. They're amazing. Jacob Collier, who I mentioned, would be another who I would be so intimidated by because he would basically like it's like I feel like all of us can like speak everybody who speaks music kind of speaks the same language. We might speak different dialects because we're from different areas of things, right? Like I'm singer, songwriter. Someone else might be like producer and speaking producer, and someone else might be speaking guitarist at me. And I play enough guitar. I'm like, oh, I speak a little guitar.
Right.
When certain people get to like a certain level of music theory, it's like being a linguistics expert. And I would probably approach that guy of like, oh, you know so much, and I'm terrified of you. I am so scared because you're gonna ask me to do something that you think is so easy, and I'm gonna go, what? But yeah, Jacob Collier, the Wilson sisters, random, but Jason Mraz was one of my first concerts ever, and he's a lovely human being. I got to meet him at that concert because radio DJ perks from my mom, and I was a little kid and just like a super sweet guy. Haley Williams from Paramore, who I've mentioned. Honestly, like if any of the greats from the classic, like I don't know if any. I'm trying to think of, if like Brian May or something was like, "Hey, let's collab." Like, who would say no to that?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Not
so
too
there's
many.
so many people who like I would scream if they wanted to collaborate with me. That I can't really particularly pick a specific one. There are some people I don't want to collaborate with, but I'm not about to spill tea and throw shade on specific artists, so I don't think I'll do that.
Can you tell me why you wouldn't want to? Because of their sound or because of their personalities?
Personalities, unfortunately, like working in entertainment in general, like in all capacities, you hear rumors about specific people and you hear like little tidbits here and there. And then like even if like you could like indirectly kind of work with artists and get a taste of their personality, and like
right.
Some people I've gotten little tastes of their personality just through like the grapevine of having worked with certain people who's working with them, that it's just like if they ask, I might for like jump starting my career, and then I would ghost them immediately after. Like
yeah,
that's a terrible thing to say, and I hope that like if I were to ever meet some of these musicians in person, they would prove me wrong. But there's a lot of really like hardworking producers and artists and musicians that I've watched get taken advantage of by bigger name artists. That it's shocking. It's mind-boggling the way that people bend over backwards for these people. I'm like,
that's
wild.
Yeah, it's bad, and I don't think that's ever changed. The music business is it can be pretty rough. It's a rough area. Tell me something about Izzy that I don't know. That might surprise me.
I LARP.
You what?
I LARP. I do a thing called live action role play. I don't know if you've ever heard of it before.
No.
I had a friend, I asked if he wanted to come LARPing with me, and I explained what it was, and he said, "Oh, those are the guys that the D&D nerds beat up. I don't think I want to go." But which I don't think is true. It's physical. LARP is like you have giant foam wooden swords, you whack each other. You get a little bit more buff than, just a standard D&D nerd. I think I could eat one up in the wild. But
I gotta ask my son. He's the D&D nerd. So
I am also a D&D nerd, so I'm speaking of beating myself up too. But no, it's basically like I describe it as like we play pretend when we're little kids, and then at some point you get too old and everybody tells you you're too old for that. And I think that's really goofy. I think the fun part about being an adult is that people can't tell you what to do anymore. Like I could have a plate of gummy bears for dinner and nobody could tell me I'm wrong. I mean, my gut would tell me I'm wrong later, but nobody else externally can tell me I'm wrong because I am the owner of my own self, my own being. So there was a portion of me that when I got older, I went like, why the hell did we stop that? That was really fun. Like I never got tired of it. my friends got tired of it and were like, I'm a big kid now. And I'm like, I don't want to be a big kid. I still want to be a little kid. Um, and it's kind of like live action D&D. So you get together with a group of friends, you wear goofy costumes, you go on quests and adventures. There's
Very
other
cool.
people who are the bad guys, and you dress up and you battle, and you have wonderful like role play moments where like I've had some of like my greatest joys and my worst nightmares happen all in a really safe, wonderful capacity, with a close group of friends. And I think it's the most fun in the world. We are the type of people who get roasted alive for this kind of stuff. There's like videos of like, if you want to play someone who like casts magic, you make little spell packets and you throw them at people, and you'll be like, there's a video of a guy going like lightning bolt, lightning bolt, lightning bolt, throwing these at like this guy in a big costume, and he like falls over. And that's the big thing that people cite, like, oh, LARP like that. And I'm like, I will not lie to you. It's exactly like that. That is what we look like. But when you're in it, you don't feel that goofy. You're playing make believe. It's fun.
Yeah, totally. It sounds great. It sounds awesome. That's too cool. Too cool. Uh, Izzy, I am having the time of my life. We got to do this again. I have, now I watched something about your food music synesthesia thing. Uh, and I thought that was so cool. Now I have a list of artists here. Should I wait? Should I? Are you
Hit me
good
with
on?
it.
Yeah, are you good on time?
I do think I got to pop at 2, but
Okay,
I could go until then.
okay, yeah. Let me give you a few. You tell me the first food that comes to your mind when I say this. Okay, you ready? Bob Marley.
Mm, like cookies, generally, really like comforty. To explain a lot of how my synesthesia works, it's generally not like a food or a dish. I can describe it in terms of a dish because that's the easiest way to convey it to people, but it's more like flavors. So I could be like, it's definitely just like I associate that with a very specific flavor. I would say like cookies. I don't know if they'd be chocolate cookies though. Probably more like a snickerdoodle cookie with like some cinnamon.
That is so cool. That is cool. And what about like something heavier, Nirvana sounds, things like that?
More like a really interesting mixed cocktail.
Okay,
But kind of depends on the song.
right.
Most songs can be like drastically different. If we're just talking about like kind of like instrumentation, like Bob Marley's voice is pretty distinct and kind of snickerdoodly for me. Um, but yeah, Nirvana definitely depends on the song.
Okay. What about something more on the Adele side? That vocal piano thing.
She has a really hearty voice, and I tend to kind of feel like more like pot pies. Really like full and whole. I definitely like filling. I don't know how to like um not turkey because it's not a sleepy sound. It's a very confusing thing to explain. Um, um,
It's so much fun. You are so much fun. I have had the time of my life. This is fantastic. I'm gonna let you go. I know you got a busy day ahead of you, and thanks so much.
Thank you
It's
for
so much
having
fun.
me.
Absolutely. And let's do it again. Let's let this Monsters in the Closet do its thing, blow up. And how are you going to release more music for us in singles, or you got an album coming, or how's that
It's
going to
going
work?
to be singles probably for a while. I'm trying to push as many songs as I can through the pipeline that is the universal pipeline. Takes a beat. One of the worst things is that you kind of have to put together all sorts of like promotional things for it. And as kind of being a more indie artist who does a lot of things herself, it takes time. So I have like a whole like backlog of like 7 songs that like are already done. I just can't release them yet. So Magic Involved will probably be the next one.
Right.
That one I think your daughter's probably gonna like more. not gonna lie.
Okay.
It is a little bit more bedroom poppy and produced. Um,
Okay.
and I think that's because I worked with two different producers on that one, so the sound's a little bit different. And after that, probably Amber's song, which is a song I wrote for like a dear friend who was going through a very horrible divorce with a very abusive man. And the whole idea is for people who are kind of struggling leaving, I need a little bit of comfort, like it's there for them.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful stuff. And that's it. All your music is just even that really happy poppy stuff. You're there. You're there. We hear you. You reach out and touch the listener, and that's a really, really special thing. I appreciate you. I look forward to spreading the word and telling people about all of your music. It's so good. Where can people find you online?
You can find me on Spotify if you want to listen to some of my music. I'm on Instagram. I'm really honest. I'm terrible at it. I'm terrible at reading it. I get yelled at a lot for like when you post, and I'm like, 99% of what I think people post on Instagram is just like, look how great my life is. And I'm like, I know a lot of you, and what you're going through right now. 99% of you are depressed. Don't lie to me. And I just kind of feel kind of like when I post, unless I'm like, I'm depressed, and then like nobody wants to see that, so I just kind of, it's not my favorite platform, basically.
Okay.
I know that a lot of the older generation doesn't really use TikTok. I do use TikTok. I think it's where I get to be like the most authentic, because I can shit post, so to speak,
Yeah.
and really goofy and also really sad and just kind of whatever is floating my boat that day. And then Facebook, I don't really know if I use it that much. But I think like if you ever do want to reach out and connect, I do check my Instagram messages. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoy listening. Handles are Fizzy Spring Music for Instagram and then Fizzy Spring for TikTok.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. I will be definitely reaching out. I can't wait to see how well this does. And yeah, let's talk again. Any plans to travel, touring?
I do have some for like once quarantine's over. The problem is we haven't been able to hard lock anything until quarantine's over.
Right. Well, I'm right outside of Chicago, so don't forget about me over here.
I will not forget.
All right. Too cool. Thanks so much, Izzy, and I will speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon. Thank you
All
for
right.
having me on.
You bet. Take care. Bye bye.